Michigan Out of Doors Online is brought to you in part by Tri-County Logging. Experienced in sustainable forestry practices, Tri-County Logging can help you manage your property by keeping your woods healthy and generate income. Serving southern and mid-Michigan for nearly 50 years, TriCountyLogging.com. Well, hey everybody, welcome to Michigan Out of Doors, and thank you so much for joining us this week. Wow, what a difference a week can make. From putting the show together last week and from putting the show together this week, I feel like we're in two different worlds when it comes to everything that's going on across the country and around the world. But I do know this, the outdoors is a great refuge and a great sanctuary for many of us, and so hopefully you can kind of get away from the craziness of life here in the next half hour. We're gonna do some cool stuff on this week's show. We're gonna show you what goes into making handmade custom knives, handmade custom arrows, and handmade custom lures. It's really kind of a unique show. We're also gonna have time for a bragging board as well. So whatever you're doing, take a breath, relax. I'm Jimmy Gretzinger, and it's time for Michigan Out of Doors.
From the first spring rains to the soft summer breeze, dancing on the pine forest floor, the autumn colors catch your eyes. Here come the crystal winter skies. It's Michigan, Michigan Out of Doors.
What a beautiful day in the woods.
Someday our children all will see this is their finest legacy, the wonder and the love of Michigan. As the wind comes whispering through the trees, the sweet smell of nature's in the air. From the Great Lakes to the quiet stream, shining like a sportsman's dream, it's a love of Michigan we all share.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Country Smokehouse, a sportsman's meat processor and Michigan destination since 1988, offers a variety of homemade smoked meats and Michigan-made products in-store and online. The Country Smokehouse features an outdoor barbecue and bar. Details at countrysmokehouse.com. By RBM Jigs, a Michigan-based company serving ice fishing anglers around the state and throughout the country. Specializing in ice fishing gear, RBM Jigs manufactures tungsten jigs, soft plastics, and much more. Online at rbmjigs.com. By AnglerQuest Pontoons. AnglerQuest is a Michigan-based company building boats designed for comfort and fishing functionality. For more information, anglerquestpontoons.com. By Polarcraft Boats, offering riveted and welded boats for the outdoor enthusiast. Whether you're targeting fish or waterfowl, Polarcraft Boats have several models to choose from that keep you high and dry. For more information, polarcraft.com.
For this week's show, I was near the city of Allegan to visit a custom knife maker and learn a little more about what all goes into a custom blade and to see the process in action.
Today we're going to forge out a drop point hunter. This is 5160 spring steel that I purchased brand new from my supplier. I've already put a small tang on it so I can have something to hang on to with my tongs, and yeah, I'll go through the process here of forging out this blade and hardening and tempering it.
Making custom knives requires a unique skill set, and that you need to have the ability to take a raw piece of material and turn it into a finished product without any kind of template. Every knife Corey makes is different, and that's part of the reason why he loves making knives.
I don't have a set standard or a set style of knife that I make. Part of the way I am is I'm very creative, and I like to come up with new ideas. I mean, I wake up in the middle of the night and I have to write stuff down because I'll have an idea pop in my head. And it's really cool because I can take something, you know, like I have clients that bring me a piece of old farm equipment, like an old leaf spring or a tine off a drag or something that's high carbon spring steel, and they'll bring me a chunk of old wood from the farm, and they'll be like, "Kay, can you make a knife to represent my heritage?" And that's the real payment for me, is to see somebody come and pick up that knife and just break down because they can't believe that we took 2 pieces of junk and created something beautiful. And that's the God-given gift that I have. I can basically look at something and make it. I don't have to make a pattern. The only patterns are in my head. All right, now I am just profiling the blade shape out that I want. I got my tang, started to set my tang for the knife. This is a hidden tang knife. And just refining the knife how whatever shape I want it, making sure everything's nice and straight. And so then the next step will be to harden it and temper it, and then it'll go to the grinder for profiling and finish work. But the closer you can forge it, the better, and the less grinding you have to do. So after this, we'll put my maker's mark in it, and then we'll do a couple normalizing cycles that makes the grain structure of the steel. When you're forging it, you're stretching the grains of the metal out, which will make it irregular and it's not as strong. So by bringing it up to temp and letting it cool down completely a couple, 2 to 3 times, that tightens that grain structure up, which makes the knife a lot stronger. So it'll take a lot more abuse.
One of the things Corey is known for is his Damascus blades, something I knew very little about before he explained the process.
Damascus blades are highly sought after because of the work that goes into them and the craftsmanship. It's not as easy to do as what I showed forging out a piece of monosteel, which monosteel is just one single piece of material, versus Damascus is multiple layers, forge welded and drawn out. And you know, to go from this to this is what people really want, and they love, you know, the detail and just the originality that their blade is not like anybody else's. This is just a random pattern Damascus here, and this would be acquired by drawing this out and compressing all this into thin layers and then cutting it apart and stacking it and doing it again. And then when you grind through, you know, think of this as all tiny, tiny layers stacked of metal. And when you start grinding through that, it's showing, revealing all the layers of metal. Now, if you're going to do a raindrop pattern, for instance, you would take this billet and you would drill a series of holes, random holes, a third deep on both sides of this, and then draw that out. And what's that doing is the hole, once it's drawn out and compressed, is leaving that raindrop circle.
Once the blade is forged, a lot of the finish work and profiling is done on the grinder. The options here are limitless, but Corey tries to incorporate as many Michigan-related items as he can into the final product.
Here at Miller, we're huge into pure Michigan, and that's why we like to use Michigan-made products, you know, like and natural products, you know, like the Petoskey stones, you know, our whitetail antlers. Try to incorporate that into each of our blades or into our sheaths. You know, maple syrup's a huge thing around the state, and like to integrate that into our knives and into our sheaths. Kind of like do theme knives, you know, we like to put a theme to a knife. A lot of the work that we do here is basically building family heirlooms, either taking, you know, antlers from deceased loved ones and turning them into a knife, to, you know, just having something that a grandfather wants to hand down to his grandson, and so on and so forth.
Turning a piece of steel into a finished knife is quite the process. It takes a lot of work and attention to detail to complete. Special thanks to Corey for teaching us all about what goes into making a custom knife.
For the last 10 years or so, I've hunted with a longbow using carbon arrows with great success. But if you want to get back to a more traditional way, you hunt with these wood arrows, handcrafted. These were made by Joe Callahan of True North Arrows right here in Michigan. That is awesome. In today's world, we are bombarded by the notion that the latest is always the greatest. You have to have the newest gadgets to be successful. Joe Callahan is not a guy who preaches that whatsoever. He's the owner of True North Arrows, a company that caters to guys building their own arrows or ones that want to shoot wood arrows like the old days.
A little over 10 years. Started making arrows with an environmentally safe product line because I did not want to smell lacquers and solvent-based products. So I came out with the True North Arrow Paint Division line, which is what I consider the industry's toughest and most durable industrial exterior grade paints and clear finishes to make arrows with. What started the company was I built some arrows that I used the old lacquer products, and I couldn't handle the smell of it at all. And I knew of a product that would work, so I tested it. I lost an arrow and found it a month and a half later, and it was still intact. There was no peeling, cracking, checking, anything like that. So that was the arrow that actually started the line, the paint line and finish line for True North Arrows. It's in my home. It's a grassroots company based here in Michigan. So I put a lot of arrows out. I think I can do 88 dozen drying time, but that's quite a bit considering I'm working by myself. It's a very stress relieving job, I'll say. I personally think once you shoot them side by side, you're going to be amazed at how forgiving a wooden arrow can be. When we're shooting traditional, whether we're shooting a longbow or a recurve, we're going back to the heart of archery. So therefore, if we're going to go back to the heart of archery, let's do that with wooden arrows. Not because I sell them, but that is what it's really about, is getting back to the tradition.
Getting back to the tradition includes building arrows in the old style with modern finishes. Cresting is an ancient technique to embellish the arrow to tell them apart. Using another Michigan-made product, the Spin-Right Crester, Joe puts his signature on each and every arrow. Cresting was an important part of an arrow in the old days when all arrows were made virtually the same.
Then I put it right on the tape where I'm going to go with the next one. Some guys will make a small pattern.
Those are patterns we got right there? Okay.
Well, originally everybody would shoot, so it was your pattern that you picked out would be your cresting pattern. Some guys use the same pattern, same colors on all their arrows their whole lives. I get bored with one. I just switch them off, so.
Nowadays, dipping and cresting arrows is really just for looks, but boy do they look good. As you can see, building an arrow is a time-consuming process, but it all pays off when you get to hunt with one of these beauties. Joe has been hunting his whole life and has had a lot of success with traditional gear.
Killed a few deer in Michigan here, quite a few actually, with recurves and longbows. I did kill a deer with the very first longbow I built, with the very first set of arrows I ever built a few years ago, and that was published in Michigan Longbow magazine. That was pretty cool. Traditional hunting gets me closer to the animal, period. My job as a bow hunter is how close I can get to the animal, not how far I can shoot. I've had deer show up at the base of a tree stand, have to wait for them to step out far enough to get a clean shot. I will not take a long shot. I will not do that to an animal. I don't care how big he is. I've hunted Montana with a gun. I've hunted Vancouver Island, Alberta. I've done everything I've wanted to do with a gun, but now everything is with a bow. It's no different than shooting hoops. If you can throw a ball, you can shoot traditional. I just think it's true archery. It's true hunting the way we were meant to hunt. I'm not a fan of the training wheels. I'm not a fan of, but if that's what somebody wants to use, I don't have a problem with it. So.
Joe has a passion for the history of archery and has gone through great lengths to match some of the vintage paint colors with his paint line. This has resulted in some gorgeous arrows that you'd swear your grandpa used to shoot. He's even caught the attention of the folks at Bear Archery, who recently signed him as the exclusive producer of their signature arrows. Spending time with Joe helped me understand the allure of sending a hand-built wood arrow downrange.
Well, as you can see from the first couple of segments on this week's show, there are some creative sportsmen and women here in the great state of Michigan. We're going to continue on with that theme and spend some time with the guy who's making handmade custom fishing lures right here in West Michigan. Handcrafted lures are amazing to see, a little scary to tie on your line, but also look good on a shelf. Jeremy Balsley has been making some beautiful replicas and actual fishing lures as well for quite some time.
I was a freshman in high school, got into that. My cousin let me borrow a portable Dremel tool, so that made it a lot easier than doing it all by hand. But went from that. I caught some fish that I wanted mounted, but I didn't have the money as a kid to have it done, and my parents didn't want to pay for it, so I ended up making my own replica in class. Most kids, they had little projects here and there. I usually had one big one throughout my art class and woodshop class.
These life-size pieces were really cool as well, but it was the very realistic lures that I was able to see that brought me to his house here today.
Well, I went in from just doing like replicas of fish and stuff, and a friend said, "Oh, you should try making fishing lures," and so I started getting into fishing lures and escalated from there. And probably 2006, 2007, I started doing more of the fishing lures. Block of wood, and go from block of wood over to the bandsaw, cut out the shape, and then I work it on the bench sander, and that takes down all the edges, so you're making it more round.
It is pretty cool to see this process from start to finish. And I asked Jeremy, when does the wood start to actually look like a fish?
I think once I start burning the detail into it and getting that detail, the depth of the wood, and really from there to the paint really makes it pop. Pretty much once it gets that halfway point, it really starts coming to life. And I think a lot of people get discouraged because it starts off so rough, and they don't see the finished product yet, so they get discouraged pretty easily, and you just gotta stick with it. And I started off behind the gill plate and just do a straight line, and every scale will be offset. You'll be able to see it a little better as soon as I get past this fin. It takes about 2 hours just for the carving part of it. Sometimes maybe just and the paint, but clear coat, I usually do about 3 to 4 clear coats, and each one takes at least 12 hours to set, so I can put another clear coat on. But 24, it should be totally dry. Put a putty in there to fill any any holes there. Pre-drill for my eye screws. And basically sand it down and it's ready for primer paint.
One thing that I had not thought of was that at some point these pieces of artwork actually have to move like a fish through the water.
Pretty much tore apart old lures and stuff, you know, to figure out what they were doing to make it work. And like crankbaits like this, you know, it's crankbait that floats, but you got to still have a weight in it to keep it belly down. But you've got the buoyancy of the wood holding it up and the bill pulling it down, which makes it want to wobble. And that was a trickier one. My favorite lure, go-to lure, is the ball spin minnow. And this one here is basically a blade bait, like the old tail spins that they had that were all lead or metal, but I brought it in wood. So basically you get the vibration and flash from that blade, and once it gets going, it gets shaking the rattle in the eye. And I got a rattle that rolls back and forth between those hard plastic eyes. So you got flash, noise, and looks halfway realistic.
As with a lot of Michigan small manufacturers in the outdoor world, what starts as a hobby can sometimes turn into a career, or at least something that helps pay the bills.
Yeah, probably 2009, 2010, I started the website, I believe, and I was really getting into it. I was making probably $300-400 a year, and it just kind of fizzled out. You know, I needed to make a little better money and support the family, so got into a real job and keeping this as my hobby and possibly retirement plan.
We will have Jeremy's website in the credits of the show if you want to learn more about him and his lures. Just another example of the creativity and workmanship of the always impressive Michigan sportsman. Well, hey everybody, thank you so much for watching Michigan Out of Doors this week. A couple things before we go. If you missed part of this week's show or maybe last week's show, you can always check us out online. Our website is michiganoutofdoorstv.com. Full episodes of the show there, as well as all sorts of fun stuff about the television program. And if you're on social media, you can check us out on most of the social media sites and see what we're up to on a day-to-day basis. Next week's show, we're going to tag along with some veterans on a pheasant hunt. I think we're going to have a crow hunt, a few other things for you as well. Then we're going to get into Big Buck Night East. Now, we did have to postpone Big Buck Night West. That will be taking place hopefully in the next several weeks or months. We'll keep you posted on that, but lots of good stuff happening around the state of Michigan. Take some time, get away from the craziness of life, spend some time in the out of doors. It is a great place to be. If we don't see you in the woods or on the water, hopefully we'll see you right back here next week on your PBS station.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by.
Do you dream of somewhere bigger than your backyard? You can get there with Greenstone. Whether you want to hunt, fish, hike, or just watch the sunset, we're ready to help you own your place in the great outdoors. To learn more, visit greenstonefcs.com.
Michigan's hunters and anglers are essential partners to the health of the state's wildlife and habitats. The Michigan Wildlife Council is dedicated to ensuring our hunting and fishing heritage and Michigan's natural resources are preserved for future generations.
By Showspan, producing consumer shows that include the Ultimate Sports Show in Grand Rapids, over 350 exhibitors, outdoor gear, boats, seminars, Lake Ultimate, and Big Buck Night, the Ultimate Sports Show at the DeVos Place in Grand Rapids. Closed captioning provided by Marvo Mineral, makers of Lucky Buck, deer management products including minerals to supplement deer diets year-round to improve health and antler growth.
When I wander far away, a dream stays with me night and day. It's the road that leads to my homestay. I am a Michigan man. Changing seasons paint the scene like rainbow trout in a hidden stream. The white-tailed deer in the tall pine trees. I am a Michigan man. I am a Michigan man. Ask where I'm from and I'll show you my hands. Lord above, I love this land. I am a Michigan man. From the Keweenaw down to St. Joe, Kalamazoo, east to Monroe, to St. Marie and back again. I am a Michigan man. I am